Infernal Blessings. We are back with another video. Before we begin, a couple quick announcements. Again, if you are interested in booking a 2024 yearly forecast reading, yes, time is starting now to wind down. I'm only going to be doing that for a couple more weeks. Please, when you send me an email to request a yearly forecast reading, put it in the subject box of your email so it stands out. And again, I'm saying that because I want to make sure I get all those booked before I, stop doing them. And I don't want to book them late because then it kind of defeats the purpose. All right, so if you're interested in a 2024 yearly forecast reading, or if you are interested in any other type of reading I offer, a telepathic demonic reading, or if you're interested in a Santa Muerte reading, an Egyptian oracle reading, a deity reading to see what spirits, gods, and goddesses walk with you, a shadow work reading, or if you're interested in a spiritual consultation, shoot me an email, khnum19@gmail.com. Please send me a full list of your availability for, throughout the week, the days you're available and the times, not just one day, please. That doesn't work. And the time zone you're in. That speeds up the process of finding a time frame that works for you and me, so I can go ahead and book that for you. All right, khnum19@gmail.com. If you want to sign up for classes, the classes that I do offer, the way to do that is on Patreon. The official Primordial Chaos Patreon page can be found at patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. Tier 3, that's the tier you want to join. That gives you access to the 3 private classes that I do every month, in addition to the group ritual that we do every month. All right. Also, when you join, keep in mind, you don't just get access to classes from the day you join moving forward. You get access to everything in the archives, right? Going back almost 4 years, all the ritual work, all the group work we do together. Everything is recorded, archived. All the classes are categorized and in numerical order. So you can take all the classes on your own time, and then hopefully you can get there live when the classes are actually going on live, and then you can fellowship with everybody else in the class. So patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti tier 3. That's the tier you want to join. That gives you access to all the classes. Mark your calendars, October 2024, 7th annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference. More to come on that as we get later in the year, but just want to put that out there and stamp it in everybody's head so they are aware. Okay, don't forget to check us out on Instagram, Primordial Chaos 9, one word. Facebook, Primordial Chaos, 2 words. I also upload all the new YouTube content to the Facebook page. Don't forget to check out the Primordial Chaos podcast, which is available on Spotify and all major podcast platforms. The direct link to the podcast, along with all the social media pages, along with the link for the Primordial Chaos Patreon page to sign up for classes, my contact email address, all of that is in the description box of the video that you're currently watching right now. All right, having said that, let's get into it. So I think it was one of the last couple videos I did, the recent ones, last 2, I think 3. So I got some emails about the video, from one stood out to me from an individual wanting clarification on some of the things that I was saying. This is an individual that is coming out of heavy indoctrination of Christianity, like a lot of people here in the West, here in America, who have been through serious years of indoctrination. Well, this individual was one of those people that was raised in a strict religious family, was heavily indoctrinated with Christianity, and obviously came to a point in their journey where they woke up and got tired of it, and made a change in their life, which I commend them for that. But wanted me to speak more on how the God of the Bible and the Quran, or monotheism in general, when I was talking about him being a bloodthirsty God, right? A vengeful God, a warlike God. All right, so my point in reference to that, to expound a little further on that, okay? Just to give some more clarity. And it's not that the person didn't understand, they just wanted me to expound a little bit further, so I figured I'd focus on that just for a short period here in these short videos that I do. Okay, so in that particular video, it was one of the last two, I can't remember, I was talking about where you will find so-called Christians or religious folk who will be very judgmental towards people who practice spiritual systems per se where blood sacrifice is used. Okay? And they'll be very judgmental in the sense making crazy statements like that's demonic, that's wicked, that's evil. It could be people who practice voodoo or Voodoo or Palo Mayembe or Ifa or any of the African traditional religions. It could be anybody who's on an occult or left-hand path, etc. Which the working with blood, as I've said before, has been used for many years. Blood is used to make pacts in sacred initiations and many different systems and practices. Animal sacrifice is used, when done correctly, right, is used ritualistically in a lot of African traditional religions, or ATRs as they call them. So what I was saying was, the point I was trying to bring up, it's very hypocritical per se for a Christian or somebody who believes in the Bible to be judgmental of somebody who engages in a practice like that when their Bible is all encoded in blood sacrifice. Okay? And it's deep because the blood sacrifice is spiritual and physical, and it's very ritualistic. When you get into as what I was saying was, when you read the Old Testament and the Torah and the books of the prophets, you will find, man, you couldn't even count, phantom, how much animals were sacrificed. And then Christians, and bloodshed and stupid shit, you see stupid statements in there, and the burning of the animal, the flesh of the animal on the altar was pleasing to the Lord God. Like, you see stupid statements like this, like, what the fuck is this? How could the burning carcass or flesh of animals be pleasing to the Lord? What kind of God are we talking about here? Okay? What are we talking about? And we see the Old Testament God thrived off of blood sacrifice. And then ritualistically, whether it was the Levitical priesthood. And as I said before, if you watch the Catholic Church, and if you really understand the Catholic Mass, going back to Vatican I up into more modern changes they made from Vatican II on to the present day, there's a lot of ritualistic things that are being enacted in a Catholic Mass. And there's one thing I've mentioned to a lot of you guys over the years in classes when this subject has come up. I said, pay attention sometimes to a very old school priest, right? You'll see during what they call the sacrifice of the Mass, through the concept called transubstantiation, you will find out, which they say, according to Catholic theology, is when the bread and the wine is literally supposed to be changed into the body and blood of who they call Jesus Christ. Here we are again dealing with the concept of blood, whether it's spiritual or physical, and blood sacrifice, right? So in the Old Testament, you're dealing with it literally, and then you have this spiritual esoterical aspect of it when you're in your New Testament, through the whole concept of the body and blood of Christ, through the Mass, through many different sects of Christianity that practice what they call the Greek word, the Eucharist, or communion, right? A lot of different sects do it. They may not do it exactly like the Catholic Church does it, but a lot of sects of Christianity have points in their service or points in the week or the month where they receive communion. It's the same thing. You're participating in the same ritual. I don't give a fuck what title you call yourself. But you'll see an old school priest, right, when he's in the part of the Mass when he's raising up and consecrating the bread, and it says, "Do this in remembrance of me." If you pay close attention, he'll take the bread when he does it and the wine, and he'll gesture it to the north, south, east, and west. Why does he do that? Okay? If you go back into your Torah, your Old Testament and the Bible, the Levitical priesthoods, anytime they did an animal sacrifice on their altar, they sprinkled blood in the four directions on the altar, because this is what was required of them to do. So they're reenacting a Levitical priesthood rite. Now, why are they doing this? Because the Catholic Church and the Catholic priesthood believes that their priesthood and their order of their priesthood is after the order of Melchizedek, or some say Melchizedek, right? Who is Melchizedek or Melchizedek? Okay, you find him mentioned in Genesis chapter 14, verse 18, as being given a tenth when Abraham came back from the slaughters. He was given offerings and bread and wine was presented to him by Abraham. You find Melchizedek mentioned in Psalms 110. You find him mentioned in Hebrews 5 and Hebrews 7 as the Ancient of Days. And it says Christ was ordained a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So this Melchizedek is found during the time of Abraham. This Melchizedek is found during the time of David in the book of Psalms. And then you see him way at the end in the book of Hebrews in the New Testament. And it says he's the Ancient of Days, has no mother, no father, no beginning, no end. And this is who the Catholic priesthood bases a lot of their ritual rites, because they trace the lineage of the priesthood of Melchizedek from Abraham's time all the way up until the time of Jesus Christ. And this is where the bread and wine, supposedly, that confirms what Hebrews chapter 5 says. And there's a lot of theories on who Melchizedek is, right? A lot of different theologians and religious sects will give their interpretation of. Jehovah's Witnesses say it's Jesus. Well, that makes no fucking sense, because how can he be a priest after himself? There's a clear separation in the scripture that defines them as two separate individuals. But who is this individual, Ancient of Days, no mother, no father? Some scholars, some people who study the Sumerian doctrine, say that that's Marduk, right? He fits a lot of the character lines of Marduk. It's obviously an entity or a spiritual being. Some say it's the angel Michael, because when you read the book of Revelations, chapter 1, it says that this book was sent and signified by Christ's angel. Okay, who was Christ's angel? Some say that was Melchizedek, which was another term for the angel Michael. What does the word Melchizedek mean? Angel of justice, right? Malachi Zadok or Melizedek in the Hebrew. Okay, angel of justice. Why some connect that synchronization to the angel Michael is because Michael in Hebrew is Mikael, who dares to be like El or God, right? And some refer to him as an angel of justice because in Revelations 12 it says there was a war in heaven, and the dragon and his angels fought against Michael and his angels. That gets into something else, which I'm not going to really talk about here for the sake of time. So there's a lot of different synchronizations of what this is talking about, but this goes deeper than what people really understand it is. You have a lot of ancient deities that predate monotheism mentioned in your Bible because the Bible was grafted from cultures and texts that predate it. That's why. And it can be very confusing because if you don't know how to piece the puzzles together, it can throw you for a loop. But blood sacrifice, whether it's spiritual or literal, is all encoded from the Old Testament, from the Torah to the times of the prophet Abraham up onto Moses, the Levitical priesthood. And then the narrative changes, right? They create this thing called the Old and the New Testament, which is comical to me, right? Because most people don't know the history of the Bible and how it was compiled and put together. It's, again, we could do a class 10 hours on this shit. Okay? It's even more funnier is because the word Bible, which most people I ask, and it's funny, I asked them, what does the word Bible mean that's on the cover of this so-called book people are so quick to defend and fight and argue and debate over? And the average layperson doesn't really know. Most don't. They don't really know. You ask them, and when you tell them the word Bible comes from the Greek word biblios, which just means a small book, and that's not a small book by any means if you look at it. Okay? So if you don't even know what's on the cover of the book, how the fuck are you going to debate, discuss, argue, and fight over what's on the inside of the context of the book? But again, to stay on topic, because, obviously things come up and you kind of veer off a little bit. To stay on topic, the point is this. When it comes to blood sacrifice, spiritually or physically, we see that concept is there. So you can't be judgmental of anybody that is utilizing that practice ritualistically in a safe manner, okay, and doing it right, because there's a process. It's not done with reckless abandonment. But it's funny how certain people, when they belong to a religion and you present that to them, they can justify it. But if you do it outside of their justification, they got an issue with it. That's crazy to me. And it's contradictory and it's hypocritical, is what it is. All of those things, same time. So I just want to be crystal clear, on that point. Okay? Now, it's funny because when you get, again, into this whole concept of what the Catholic Church calls transubstantiation. Very fancy, long word, sounds very fancy, sounds very heavy and deep, right? What I would recommend people to really understand the teachings of the Catholic Church, and I'm going to tell you this because I was born and raised a Catholic, obviously gave that up at a very early age, but I retained a lot of it and went back when I came on a path of self-mastery, and now went back years ago and reevaluated and broke down everything I was taught. And so now, knowing what I know, how they came up with the concept, because the Catholic doctrine and a lot of Christian doctrine is encoded in mystical and a lot of ancient systems that predate it. Now, this transubstantiation, again, very big word. I would encourage people to get a copy of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Right? It's funny because the Catechism, right, is the real teachings and the traditions and the concepts and what the Catholic Church teaches and condones, and what they don't teach and what they don't condone. Okay? And it's funny because I look at the Catechism of the Catholic Church nowadays, it's like how the Muslims have their hadith or their tales. They focus more on the hadith than they do the literal Quran. Well, the Catholics focus a lot more on the Catechism of the Catholic Church rather than the actual Bible itself. Because, no, don't get me wrong, you do need tradition, right? But they're very guilty of what, per se, say Islam does, or what a lot of the Orthodox Jews do. They follow more the Talmud than they do the actual Torah, right? This is not a coincidence. So you have these major world religions, right, that are following words of men more so than they claim to be following their so-called God or the Bible or the Quran, etc. Okay, but if you really want to understand the real hardcore teachings of the Catholic Church, get you a copy of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. You will find that's their teachings, right? There's shit in there on masturbation. They don't condone masturbation because, and they refer to Genesis chapter 38 verse 9, the story of Onan, O-N-A-N, where he ejaculated and spilled his seed on the floor. They call it onanism. That is like a sin. So, man, there's a lot of people going to hell because how many people whack off every day on masturbation? I mean, come on, man. It's just, if you really want to understand the hardcore teachings of the Catholic Church, get you a Catechism of the Catholic Church. There's stuff like that in there that, that they kind of, I don't want to say promote, but kind of their codes that they live by through their traditions and this, that, and the other. Okay? But in there, transubstantiation, they teach, is the priest is invested. That's what they say. I'm just telling you what they say. I'm not telling you to believe this shit. I'm just telling you what the fuck they say. They say the priest is invested because he gets ordained, and when a priest is ordained, he is now invested with the power to perform the sacred rite of the Mass. And the most sacred rite of the Mass, according to Catholic tradition, is the turning of the bread and the wine into the body and blood of Christ, or what they call in their teachings transubstantiation. It's just a very fancy word for you, like we do in rituals, to you to go into the power of your mind and use your visualization skills. Because that's what you're doing. So you're supposed to wholeheartedly accept and believe that that wine and bread now is the body and blood of Christ. And then they have you partake in spiritual cannibalism. Okay? Then there's a portion of the Mass where you can go up and get your bread or your communion wafer and ingest the body of Christ, which is a form of spiritual vampirism. Okay? And the blood of Christ when you drink the wine, which is, again, another form of spiritual vampirism. Okay? And it's called transubstantiation. Okay? So, here's your esoterical spiritual practice of working with blood. So, either way you look at it, this God of the Bible is a bloodthirsty, warring God. There's no getting around it. Okay? There's no denying it, because it's right there in front of your face. Whether you like it or not, or whether you want to accept it or not, that shit is irrelevant. Doesn't matter. Okay? We're discussing it, talking about it, and calling it for what it actually is. Okay? This is why I say when people read the Bible, they don't really understand what they're reading. And the Bible can be a very complex book because it's very easy for people to literally take passages out of there and adjust it to their narrative, which I said in previous videos, which is very fucking annoying. Okay? It's very easy to find a couple verses in the Bible and correlate it to what's going on today in the world. Just as you could do the same exact thing today in 2024, I've seen people do the same shit they're doing today in 2024, the same tactics that they were doing back in the 80s, literally. So what does that tell you? It tells you they're interpreting the shit wrong. They're creating their own personal narrative. Okay? So the fact of the matter simply is, for those who maybe have come through heavy systems of religious indoctrination, you've got to deprogram yourself and replace what you're deprogramming with correct information and knowledge. Okay? Because nothing changes at all if you are not doing that reprogramming process. Excuse me. So that's why, to the person that asked the email the next time, and I know sometimes for some people out the gate who just get on the path and they're new, that could be a trying time in the beginning when friends or family see you on that type of path. They could be very judgmental, very critical, and very hard, and just come at you sideways the wrong way. So to that person that asked that might be struggling with that to a degree, right? That's how you want to kind of tackle the issues with stuff like that. That's how you want to kind of get things in order when it comes to having a greater understanding, because you're always going to have ignorant ass people that just don't get it. Okay? But you're clearly explaining to them the issues and the problems and the contradictions, and some of them just got blinders on, man, tunnel vision. They just don't want to see it. So, excuse me. So, the point being, okay, for anybody to be judgmental, I'm going to leave it with this. For anybody to be judgmental or critical of people who are on the left-hand path or the occult or the path of self-mastery about certain practices, be careful when you're quick to point a finger and make judgment. Because guess what? That finger could be turned around and pointed right back on you. Okay? So hopefully that gives you clarification, even more of a greater understanding, so you can deal with the knuckleheads when they try to come at you. All right, other than that, that's going to wrap it up for this video. But real quick, again, if you need to reach out to me, khnum19@gmail.com. If you need to reach out to me for a spiritual consultation, a spiritual reading, that's the email address you want to get at me at. Don't forget the direct link to the social media pages, Instagram and Facebook, the direct link to the Primordial Chaos Patreon page to sign up for classes. All of that is in the description box of this video that you are currently watching right now. Other than that, that's going to do it for me. This is Baniti. We'll talk soon. I'm out of here.